When you go through it, you just don't really see the light at the end of the tunnel. For me, I can honestly look back and say, I'm happy that this happened. I am a happier person than I was. I'm discovering more about myself and who I am and who the kids are. And I wouldn't have believed you if you had told me that was what my life was going to be like a year ago.
Welcome to the Divorcing Dads podcast. My name is Dr. Eran Magen. Join me for honest conversations with divorcing dads about their journey of healing. Our goal is to support and empower divorcing dads to stay connected with their children while living a life they love. To protect the privacy of the dads I speak with, we change their voice as well as names, locations, and other potentially identifying information. If you are feeling hopeless or unsafe, please call 988, which offers free and confidential counseling 24/7. You are not alone. Your kid's life will be better with you in it. Don't give up. That number again is 988. And now let's turn to today's episode. Mark and I started talking very soon after his ex left their home, and we spoke every couple of weeks, but only started recording our conversations about 4 months into the process. In this episode, you'll hear the first recorded conversation. Mark had just come back from a trip that he gave himself as kind of a feel-better gift, and he talks about how that worked for him. We then move on to cover a wide range of topics, including how Mark continues to share the news about his divorce and getting support from people in his life, what time with the kids is like for Mark, and what time away from the kids is like for Mark, and the kind of guilt and sadness that he feels when he's away from them and how he's dealing with it. And then some thoughts about starting to date, possibly. I hope you will enjoy and benefit from hearing this conversation. So, here's Mark talking about his trip.
I went with my dad, and, well, I guess I originally booked this vacation because I've been wanting to go to Denmark for a long time, you know? My ex never really wanted to go. So this is kind of after we divorced. I found a free week for me where she had the kids, and I had some free time to book a trip for her, and the timing thing just worked out. And originally, I was really hesitant to do it. I think because I was kind of in a dark place. And one of the things that you had told me was, imagine that someone you loved was going through this, or your kids, and what would you want them to give themselves permission to do? And this was that thing. So I gave myself permission to book this trip, and I had a great time. Denmark, for me, and just the kind of person that I am, it's the kind of trip that I enjoy. Like, it's a good mix of sightseeing and outdoorsiness. You know, there's like this good mix of hikes and stuff and things you can do. It's like kind of a foreign land where you can't pronounce anything. It's also a mix of kind of relaxing things you can do as well. I mean, they have like hot springs and stuff, good food and things like that. There was like this fish stew that I can't pronounce. We had like the fermented shark, which was kind of a novelty. You know, I couldn't pronounce that either.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I think it's such a way to make lemonade is kind of very overused expression, but it's, I guess, like a silver lining, right? Like there's some positive in this when you realize, oh, there's this thing I've been wanting to do all this time, and now I can.
Yeah.
I don't need anyone to agree or to have permission or to participate. Like I can just go. And I think it's amazing. And I think it's such an important way to support yourself, right? And this really difficult experience you're going through on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. It was nice to just get away from that too. Yeah. I think day in and day out, I mean, being in this, like whatever this is called, going through the divorce, process of divorce thing, and that becoming part of my identity, you know?
Yeah.
But going on this vacation kind of, I don't know, freed me from that a little bit. Like being someone who's not going through a divorce, but being someone who's just on vacation.
Yeah.
It's funny because right before I left for the trip, another friend of mine from college found out about the divorce.
Yeah.
I guess my ex had posted a picture of her and her boyfriend, or her new boyfriend, or affair partner, or whatever you want to call it, on social media. And they were kind of like, what the heck? Who is this person? And so, yeah, they emailed or texted or whatever, and they were just like, hey, I found out about this. Do you want to meet up or talk? Or so I had drafted up this email that was like, here's what's going on, so I don't have to talk about it.
Right.
And I met up with this friend, and I talked with him for like 3 hours anyway. And it turns out that he's actually coworkers with that guy.
Oh, wow.
Just like total random coincidence.
Wow.
Yeah. Like they happen to be like in the same department. Yeah. In their company. He didn't know him that well, but so that was like a kind of a weird, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so this friend that I met up with was kind of like a friend from college, and it's one of those friends that maybe we haven't talked in a long time, but it's just really easy to pick up where we left off.
Yeah, clearly the 3 hours. And I guess it also answers the other question I had in my head and then realized you answered it by saying you talked for 3 hours, which is, was the working together any kind of a conflict of interest or some problem? But it seems like no.
Not really. I mean, my friend was really sympathetic and really kind, and said a lot of nice things. We left hoping to meet up more often and not due to, like some tragedy or whatever. I thought that conversation would be a lot more painful than it was. And so I was kind of surprised and happy to have the support. It also felt really validating too, because it wasn't like I'm asking people to take sides or stuff or anything like that. But the words that were said were very affirming, agreeing that I did do my best. And I don't know. Just affirming that I did do my best and that I didn't do anything wrong. And as you know, that's important to me.
Yeah, kind of going back to that question that you were asking yourself a couple of weeks ago, right? No, maybe a month ago, about what could you have done differently to prevent the divorce, essentially.
Yeah, throughout all this, I'm able to rest in the knowledge that I did my best and that I'm continuing to do my best. I'm taking care of the boys and just being above board on my relationship with my ex-wife.
It's really nice that a friend found you, reached out to you to offer support. Like so often it's about the discomfort of reaching out to friends and telling them what's going on, like you were saying, right? Writing that email and just not having to reinvent it every time, but then to have a friend come to you and offer such nice support and validation, that's really wonderful.
Yeah, just before I left. It was like, yeah, one more thing to deal with before I leave, but it was okay.
Yeah.
It turned out to be a good thing in the end.
How are your kids doing?
My kids are doing well, I think. The older one is running for student government, so it's always just nice. And, I think we're at this stage where it's just a fun age, right? Where they're getting interested into things and they're trying to find their own interests and hobbies and things like that and just trying things out. And we're able to be really supportive of that, which is nice. My oldest trying out for student government or whatever is not something that me or my ex would ever have done. And it's not something that we did when it was his age, or even older. He's like just putting him out there and trying it out, like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's either totally his own thing or some recessive gene showing itself.
And, there's like other things too. Like he kind of got into computer programming for a little bit and I'm in tech, but it's not something I pushed. It was just like he was playing with his Legos one day and one of his Legos is like a programmable one. And so you like drag and drop pictures or whatever. It's very pictorial. So you like drag and drop the instructions or whatever, like on how to make the Legos do things and stuff. There's like this sensor and this motor and things like that. It's very like STEM toy,
Oh, that's great.
So he was like, I know you don't use this at work. So what do you guys use at work? And so I showed him just a little bit about what we do, like of our code repositories at work. And so he was like, can I learn about that? And I was like, okay. And then, so we got some books about like the Python coding language
Wow.
from the
Wow.
library,
Yeah.
and now he's
Awesome.
really into that. I was like, I didn't really push for this or anything, but now I'm glad that he's into it and interested in something that I do, so that was nice.
Yeah. And there's actually, before I assume, like, what's nice about this, that he's interested in something that you do?
I want to say that it's nice that he sees me, so that makes me feel seen, which is nice. I'm not usually thinking about that. I'm thinking about how wonderful it is. It's the sense of wonder at the mind of a child. And I really enjoy that.
The creation of life is miraculous. There's no other word for it, right? I mean, you take a couple of, pieces of like vaguely life stuff, and then you combine them, and then suddenly there's like a whole new life coming out. That's astonishing to me. But it's kind of abstract. Like I don't actually see it happening. I mean, I see the birth, but that's really it. And it's kind of awe-inspiring, but I don't see the moment of life creation. But observing cognition grow, that to me is a totally mind-blowing miracle. Like human cognition is just unbelievable to see the baby mind and then the toddler mind and then the child mind just exponentially soak in information, understanding. I have no other word for it than miraculous.
Yeah, for sure.
So student government and programming. And I wonder, did he have any kind of inclination toward that 6 months ago?
No, I don't think so. I think the student government thing is definitely I don't even know where I think it's just like at this age, they don't even have some huge concern about what other people think of them.
Right. Great benefit.
So they're just like, yeah, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Right. My younger one, at the end of the last school year, there was like this talent show. Yeah. So he just like whistled a song. I mean, he's in first grade and he whistled a song. And he didn't care. It was just like whistling. I mean, other kids were up there playing like their violin or piano or jungling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he was just whistling.
My talent is not caring what you all think.
And his teacher sent me the video of it. And we were both like, wow, I wish I had the courage to do something like that. And we were both just kind of marveling at like the self-confidence that he was asserting.
I don't know at all that this is true, but I know that I take such great delight at my kid being interested in being more like me. It feels very reassuring to me in terms of our relationship. So not just the part that you said about being seen, but also the part where he clearly thinks it's good to be me, or that there's value in being like me. And so he tries to learn some of the things or do some of the things. That to me is just very reaffirming of the relationship as well.
And I think that just kind of goes along with that video you posted. It's like the kids see you. They don't have to go by what they hear about you. They see it for themselves.
Yeah, they have direct experience. Yeah. And what they see is obviously good if he wants to learn how to do what you do, and for you to teach him that.
The younger one still does kind of sulk a little bit. I mean, he's still pretty sad about the divorce thing the last couple of weeks, He said something like, I wish we weren't divorced, or I'm sometimes sad and I really don't know why. But it's usually around like bedtime, because he's kind of tired. But even then, it's kind of hard to articulate those things.
This is flipped from what was before, right? Because before you said your older one was more upset.
Yeah. The older one would get, at the beginning, he was really upset about how quickly things were moving, especially with my ex-wife and, the new guy in his life, And he had said things to the effect of like, this whole thing is mommy's fault, or, stuff like that. I don't know. He hasn't really had an episode like that for a while now.
But then you see the younger one being more upset.
Yeah. The younger one. Yeah. I just think a week apart from the other parent is just too long.
Yeah.
He'll say things like, I miss mommy. And I'll say, you'll see her on video chat tonight, or tomorrow's Wednesday and you'll see her for dinner. And then he kind of feels better and goes off and does his thing,
Yeah.
Or yesterday he was just tired, like he fell asleep right when his head hit the pillow.
Another amazing skill of kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we talked about before, I'm trying to just acknowledge those feelings and not feed into it like, oh, I miss mommy too, and be really cryptic, because that doesn't help.
And so what does it look like?
These days, I just kind of acknowledge the feelings. Like, it's okay to be sad. It's normal to be sad about these kind of things.
Yeah.
But things are better now. I don't know if you noticed, Pete, but mommy and daddy are both kind of doing better apart. We're doing a lot better apart than we ever did together. And I know you can't tell, but we are happier. So I said that. And then this most recent time, it was, just those other things like, you're going to see her tomorrow, so maybe it'll be better then. And he was like, okay.
So right now, you say a week apart is too much, but I remember that there's the midweek meet and that it's no longer at your homes.
Yeah.
Right? But like a pickup and a drop off midweek.
Yeah, I just dropped them off at, this week they're with me. So I just dropped them off at their mom's place on Wednesday. And she drops them back off when they're done. So like at 7:30.
But still, it feels like a week basically of not seeing her and that being too much for them.
Yeah. I don't know if it's that serious, but he'll occasionally just say, I miss her,
Yeah.
I don't actually know if he actually says I miss daddy when he's at mama's place.
That's the big question, right? That would always be nice to know.
At the same time, I am okay if he doesn't say that. I think it kind of indicates that I'm a constant in his life,
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to miss daddy because he's just going to be here when I get back.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And do we engender in our kids a sense of something is missing or a sense of something is complete and that it's okay? Like, as long as they're happy coming to us, do we need them to miss us when we're not there?
Right. That's a bit, I feel like if we need that, that's a bit unfair.
Yeah, it's needing something from the kids, right? If we need them to miss us.
Yeah. Speaking of the midweek thing, as my wife, not my wife, my ex-wife, I'm so used to saying that, as she dropped off the kids on Wednesday at my place, we did have to stop and do some signing of papers because we had to split up the cars. So we had to retitle them and things like that. And then she also said, oh, by the way, a new boyfriend and I have been meeting with a therapist. She was like, I was going to tell you this last week, but you were in Denmark. And I was like, thank God you didn't talk to me while I was in Denmark. I was going to tell you this last week, but the therapist had mentioned that we shouldn't have to keep asking our kids for permission to meet up anymore. It shouldn't be a question, that we should just go ahead with it. Because they're trying to figure out when the family is in a healthy way or whatever. And the therapist was like, don't give them the option. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay.
So not asking for permission for what activity?
For being together, getting together. I think before this, she would kind of give them the choice or the illusion of choice, whether or not to hang out with that guy and his kid,
Yeah.
I see illusion of choices because there have been several times where she took him to meet up with them without even telling them. Anyway, so it was kind of staged as an accident,
Wow.
but we accidentally ran into him at this park and whatever, or things like that. So I was like, you weren't really giving them the choice in the first place, but okay. But I guess she just felt the need to tell me that for some reason. And, I kind of came back with, well, look, that thing I just said, you didn't give him the choice in the first place. You accidentally, quote unquote, ran into him at the park. What? Nothing, things like that, right? Had video chats with them in front of him. So I don't know what you needed a therapist to tell you. She was like, oh yeah, those were mistakes. Now we're just going to be overtly intentional about it. I was like, whatever. And then I was like, why are you telling me this? I'm like, ugh, I'm never going to approve of this person in our entire lives. I mean, I told her that. Like, I told her expressly, like, he cheated on his own spouse, and led you to cheat on your spouse. So I'm never going to be okay with this person. I'm never going to consider him a good person in our kids' lives. So she was kind of like a little taken back from that. And like, I was like, oh, well, I wasn't asking for your permission or your approval. I was like, okay, well.
Yeah, it's kind of a theme. I'm not asking for permission.
Yeah. After that, I just started rambling a little bit. And I was just like, I'm still not, I mean, I don't approve of this guy, but I just won't say that around the kids, you know? I won't tell the kids what you did or speak ill of you or that guy. I guess my only concern, like, and then I reiterated what we talked about, where it was like, where I said, my only concern with them is like how they feel about him, like that guy, you know, and as far as that guy is concerned.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all I said. I mean, I was kind of fumbling at that point because I was just trying to stay aboard and, you know, processing this and, like, while she was like looking at me and stuff.
So what was the context for this conversation? This was an in-person conversation?
Yeah. We were just like downstairs in the garage. She had come to drop off the kids.
Oh, I see. So she came to drop off the kids, brought the papers, and then you were signing things, and then she told you about this.
Yeah, like, by the way, we'd been seeing a therapist or something. Yeah. I don't really know why she felt the need to talk about that, but yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But I felt pretty good. Ultimately, even though I was fumbling around at the end, I felt pretty good. Like I said what I needed to say. I hope that, number one, she understood my position on it. Number two, that she'll never bring that up with me again.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder too why she brought it up with you. And do you have no interest in knowing what her policy is regarding the kid?
Yeah.
About different things?
I don't, because at this point I've gotten pretty used to her just doing whatever she wants, you know? So I don't know why she felt the need to tell me that. Maybe she felt the need to tell me that that now she's seeing a therapist or whatever.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So you don't complain about it.
Yeah. And I've never complained about it. I've only ever written to her about Asher's feelings about it.
Yeah.
Except that one time when she took them to the park and then ran into him. And that was a violation of the parenting agreement. And just that one time. Then she told me the next time. And I was like, okay, well, agreement satisfied. Okay.
Yeah, interesting. The hypothesis you have here is that she's telling you to let you know that this is done with the blessing of a therapist, and therefore it's going to happen, so you shouldn't object. But you had no intention of objecting anyway.
Yeah. Either that or like there's some feelings of guilt over whatever she had done in the past or whatever. Like, hey, I'm not a bad person because somebody else said this was okay to do. Somebody else who I'm paying money to told me it was a good idea.
Right.
That I was okay.
A disinterested third party that I happen to be employing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get the sense that your general emotional reaction, at least right now, is essentially a shrug.
Yeah. It's kind of a shrug because it's kind of like you're an adult and I can't prevent her from doing that stuff. I kind of made my peace with that. And I don't know why she had to bring it up again. But I'm also glad that she did because it gave me an opportunity to tell her this is never going to happen with me. You know, this acceptance or approval of that particular's presence in Pete and Asher's lives, that's never going to happen.
And that felt important to tell her?
Yeah, I think so.
What did it do for you?
I think for me, it was it was 75% for my sake and 25% for the sake of our kids, you know? But obviously the 75% was very much like my own ego and pride and stuff and just my own need to be seen and have my thoughts be known. And the 25% was, hey, I want my kid's mother to know that I think there's a bad influence in their lives. Like,
yeah, kind of register your protest.
Yeah. Like, I don't think what you're doing is a healthy thing for them. And I talked to my sister about this too. And I was like, well, you know, like how after you have these intense conversations and you kind of go back and you're like, oh, I wish I would have said this. it was like something to the effect of like, you're just saying this to make you feel better. Do whatever you need to make yourself feel better. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what I wish I had said.
In real time comment on the process of her telling you this and you telling her that it's clear to you that she's just trying to make herself feel better.
Just like, so do whatever you need to make yourself feel better. But this is what I think, and I'm not going to change. And my sister was like, it's good you didn't say that. I mean, I wish you would have said that, but it's probably good that you didn't say that,
Yeah, it would have been, right? You get that scene of, you get to walk away from an explosion in slow motion, but still, maybe it's not an explosion that you need.
Yeah. Right. I think that's a good analogy. Yeah. Walking away from the explosion. Yeah. So I didn't need to say that. And so I'm kind of glad that I didn't.
Was the conversation itself civil, comfortable?
I don't think it was comfortable. I don't think any of our conversations have been comfortable for a while. I mean, even like before the separation, but I think our communication had worn down so much. So it was just like, we were just kind of talking in starts and stops, I think for a long time, we had lost a lot of that flow we used to have when you're in a good relationship with someone. I think our conversations now are full of like starts and stops because we're like constantly second guessing what the other person is trying to say. What they mean. Even when we're just coordinating calendars and stuff, it's so much easier in text than to do it in person.
Yeah. Because
in person, we're just talking in all these, I don't know what it is. It's like just starts and stops, or we're like maybe interrupting each other or whatever, because we're just not even sure of our mannerisms or whatever. Or like whatever, like we're not accustomed to the way the other person, like I totally feel like that when speaking with her now.
Yeah. So total reshuffling of the communication.
Yeah.
And is part of that like suspicion or concern about her motives in talking and sort of, walking carefully across the minefield, or are you second guessing yourself as you're saying things?
Yeah, I think it's all of that. I mean, I think it's both of those things. Like part of it is second guessing myself, making sure that I'm communicating clearly or what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
So there's like no second guessing or no room for second guessing. And I think some of it's also like, yeah, I just want to make sure it's perceived the right way. Luckily, we don't have many of those in-person interactions anymore.
I think I'm coding a lot of this as feeling like there's little opportunity to recover in case a mistake happens or somebody misspeaks or misunderstands. Like, in a relationship that has trust built into it, then, if somebody says something even offensive, the other person can say that was offensive, and then there's an opportunity to repair. Or if somebody says something wrong and then says, oh, no, I didn't mean that. The other person says, oh, what did you mean? As opposed to like, no, you said that, and that's a signed contract now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I can imagine if everything needs to be done correctly, right? Because everything is fragile and any kind of damage or misstep can lead to really bad results. Then you slow way down in communication to make sure that there's no mistake happening. You're playing slow chess. You're not playing thumb war, with a friend. You're playing chess with an opponent.
Yeah, it's very much like that. Well, I wouldn't say chess, but yeah, it's just like a lot of stop and starting. Yeah, it's awkward. The communication's awkward, Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, like you said, there is an alternative, which is written communication. And I guess that's, at least for you, it's more comfortable, right? It gives you some separation and time to think and consider your response and consider what she said.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy for me because it's kind of like my job, in management. I mean, you're emails all the time,
Yeah, I wonder if it really may be a factor, right? That kind of like a different facet of you is engaged, like a different persona, and you can kind of manage the situation.
Yeah, I think so.
A different library is loaded, right, in your head.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the entire capacity of my coding analogy.
That's great. I love life applications of engineering concepts. Yeah.
Okay, so your older kid seems to be doing better right now, because for a little while he was kind of bubbling right to a point that you were concerned.
Yeah. He was really raging a lot about the other guy or about my ex-wife or his mom seeing this other guy,
Yeah.
I think he's kind of accepted it too. And I use the word accepted, meaning like realize he can't do anything about it. She's just going to do whatever she wants to do. So he's kind of going along with that.
Yeah. So he's less kind of actively upset about it, which is still meaningful, right? I mean, you can realize that you can't change something and still be upset about it for a long time.
Yeah.
So at least he's less upset about it, or maybe not. I don't know. But I'm glad to hear that he's not raging regularly now. That's not a healthy place to be.
Yeah.
But then some of that intensity, some of that energy moved underground and is now coming out of your younger kid.
Yeah. Yeah. But his whole thing is mostly, he just says he misses her.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really go much into the specifics of what he misses. Just, yeah.
Yeah. And how often does that happen that I'll say that when he's with you?
This week it happened twice so far. On Tuesday night, which was the night before they were going to have dinner, on Wednesday. And then I think he said it last night, but also last night was like a really tired night, you know?
So the other times were not when he was especially tired?
No, he was tired too. It's usually at night when he says it, yeah. At the same time, it's kind of like there's a bias there too, because in the evenings is when we would have family time anyway. Otherwise, they're in school and doing homework. And
Oh, that's
right.
okay. So that's mixing up two things at once, right? He's tired and that's the time that you see him.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's hard to say which is driving which. Right. And how insistent is he about it? Or like I guess two questions. One is how upset is he when he says that? And two is how insistent is he about it?
It's not too bad. I mean, he'll only like say it once and then I'll address it with either like, like the whole thing about, you'll know you see her, or you'll be on FaceTime or video chat and that thing. And then he's okay after that. Or with like the whole thing about like, things are better now that we're apart. And then he just goes on and does his next thing, like he moves on.
Okay. Yeah. So he doesn't get really stuck on that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I may be presumptuous in saying this, but I think their identity's not too tied up as being the children of divorced parents as we are as being divorced people, or, well, at least mine is anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, this connects to what you were saying before about how they don't really care about what other people think. I think kids are still, very blissfully egocentric.
Yeah.
And it's mostly, they're the main character in their show in their head.
Yeah.
I guess we all are in our heads, but point is, they're still them. Some of their situation has changed, but there's a lot more to their lives than the state of relationships between their parents.
Right, right. Which is good.
So I think it's a very good insight that, they probably spend less time thinking about the fact that you're divorced than you spend about thinking that you're divorced.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. So right now, how does it work? She will drop him off with you on Sunday, right?
Yep. Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon. So there's that. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they see her again.
Yeah.
And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon, they go to her. And then it's the mirror image.
Yep. Exactly.
Monday, Tuesday. So it's 2 days that they don't see her. And then Wednesday, and then 3 days.
Yeah.
That they don't see her.
Right.
I mean, it seems reasonable because I'm sorry that I keep asking, but they're 6 and 9. Is that right?
Or 7 and 9. Yeah.
7 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On the face of it seems reasonable. Did you notice if he says that more the first half of the week, like before Wednesday or after Wednesday?
No. One time was before Wednesday and one time was after. So one time was last night. So like both and, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, both. And do they also have like FaceTime or something in between?
Yeah, they do. Like every night. Yeah, most every night. Yeah.
And was that the times that he said that he missed her, were those before or after the FaceTime?
It was before. Yeah. Like last night, he was getting kind of apprehensive because it was getting kind of late and she hadn't texted she was available yet. Because she works a lot on the week that I have the kids, because that's when she makes up most of her overtime. Yeah. So sometimes she's working late. And so I was like, let's get ready for bed and see if she calls. And like 5 minutes before bedtime, she was like, oh, let's do a really quick one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I volunteer an opinion here?
Yeah, of course.
I think that's actually an important point. I think when something may or may not happen, it's much more in our mind than when we know for sure it's going to happen, we know for sure it's not going to happen.
Mm.
And so I think it may be not just in terms of whether he thinks about her or not. Like, it's fine for him to think about her, obviously. She's his mom. But
Okay.
there's some tension that happens there, right? If he wants to talk, which is, again, natural and reasonable, if he wants to talk, but he's not sure if it's going to happen, this can create more tension, for example, than if he wants to talk and he knows it's not going to happen.
Right.
And so I wonder if, I don't know if it's possible given her work context, but I wonder if it may be possible to have some sort of a cutoff time for her to tell you if they're going to talk, so that when they come back from school, they know, or maybe later. I'm brainstorming here, but basically a way to not leave him waiting until bedtime, wondering if it's going to happen.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
all the way to bed, because bedtime, then it would make sense for him to be like, I miss mommy, because like now it's becoming clear they're not going to talk.
Right. And I think I could work that out with her. Yeah. Maybe not so much a cutoff time, but establishing it like, hey, is it going to be likely that we're going to talk tomorrow? Even at the end of the call from the previous or that night, just to say, hey, tomorrow night we're going to be working late, so I won't be able to FaceTime, or I won't be working late, so we'll definitely be able to FaceTime and we'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid the maybes, right? The tomorrow I'm working late, so I might not be able to call. Then now, in the mind of a 7-year-old, this can be like, well, maybe she'll make a super effort and call. Let's see if she wants to talk to me.
Oh, well, knowing Asher, he used to be okay with that. Like like we've had that before and he's been okay. Where he was like, she said like, oh, I might call you back later, or I might not be able to talk because I'm at work and because I might not be available because unless it's an emergency or something. And he's like, oh yeah, okay. So yeah, it doesn't really affect him that much. But yeah, I get it. At least having that expectation there. Even when I was in Denmark, I was FaceTiming them whenever I could. But there was a big time difference, so it was like maybe like 2:15 in the afternoon in Denmark, and it was like 7:30, 7:15. So we could talk before they went to school. But if I knew I was going to be out in some remote area with terrible cell coverage, then I told them like, hey, I'm probably not going to be able to FaceTime you guys tomorrow. And so they were okay with that.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. So for you, when you say probably not, that's like a pretty high probability than not, like kind of assume that it's not going to happen when you say probably not.
Yeah.
Which is what you're thinking she might be able to do as well with regards to work.
Right.
Yeah, I think that can create a little bit of peace. I mean, I think we're working on the margins here, right? Like this doesn't sound like a big issue, but I can see it being, I know that, I mean, if I have somebody that I want to talk with and may or may not, like it's on my mind.
Right. Exactly. It's not too big of an issue, but it's something that we could kind of make better. Yeah. Improve that at minimum. Yeah. Other than that, not too much. Just kind of taking stock of things from like the 10,000 foot point of view.
Yeah.
I think I am doing a lot better than I was 3 or 4 months ago, which of course is always where you want to be, right? But I feel like, I think there for a while, I was like in this fake it till you make it mode, telling myself certain things and then trying to believe them. But now I'm actually like, when I've said before, like I did the best with what I knew over the course of my marriage and stuff. I was probably like 60 to 70% sure of that being true. But now I'm like really sure of that being true.
Can you, for both our sakes, go a little more in depth into that? What is the thing that you were faking till you're making and that you now have made?
Yeah, I think just trying to like survive at the beginning, with the processing and the initial shock with the divorce. And I think for the first few months, just trying to hold on to whatever's good to kind of get used to get you to the next day, right? I think that's what I mean by fake it till you make it, because not necessarily like saying things or believing things that are untrue, but whatever tiny bits or shreds of evidence that there are that indicate to you that you were and are a good person and you are and were doing the right thing, you kind of cling on to those, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're not completely sure that they're true, or there was something maybe you were blind to, initially. So that's kind of like the thinking part. But the making it, I think having like talked through it and having lived it, even just this past week with her in the garage, like talking with other people, talking to my friend before I left for Denmark, those things were validating experiences to me.
The image that I have in my mind when you say this is kind of like watching a movie that has nice bits and scary bits, or scary bits and really scary bits, and having our hands cover our eyes and occasionally peeking through.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, maybe when we're coming in, the first time we're watching that movie, basically we're coming in so shaken up and so confused and so shocked. And it's important that we actually cover our eyes when the really bad bits are showing, and we only look at the stuff that can give us, something positive. But then later on, since we're basically watching the movie again and again, or maybe it's a show, maybe it's a weekly show, right? But has similar content week to week.
Yeah.
But in future weeks, and as we become more settled and have a better sense of ourselves and get more validation maybe, or just become more grounded and more centered, then we can tolerate just watching the whole show and actually feel okay throughout, because we're more stable, right? The person watching the show is more stable, and we can tolerate and be okay seeing all of the pieces and not just some of the pieces. I guess what I'm saying is that it sounds to me like during that initial period when it was really just acutely distressing, you had to manage your attention really carefully, not think too much about the stuff that was really upsetting, and especially think as much as you could about the things that could make you feel good.
Yeah.
Right. And then over time, and it sounds like now your aperture is fully open, right? Like you can see and consider and take in anything, and it's not too destabilizing for you. It sounds like right now it's not destabilizing for you at all. You're very firmly rooted in your sense of self and your values and your life and your relationship with your kids, and you're able to tolerate the totality of your situation. Is really different from a few months ago. I guess that's passing through my filter. That's what I'm taking out from what you're saying.
Yeah. I hope that that's the case. Like, as you say that, I'm thinking just all the little incidences over the past several weeks, I guess, and destabilizing. I guess you said destabilizing, and sometimes they were destabilizing, and like her and that guy, and
yeah,
and like her and the guy and how it affected the kids that were upsetting.
Yeah,
like we kind of bring things crashing. Will he like bring things crashing down over my like overall?
Yeah.
But then with what happened this last Wednesday with the whole her telling me those things in the garage, I hope maybe I turned a corner with that, and that incident wasn't so destabilizing to me. I feel like I was able to handle that okay, and I was like able to assert my own feelings and my own thoughts about her opinions about the situation. And I think have a measured amount of concern for myself and the kids in that, and not let that affect me, at least overly much, too much,
Yeah, to not become too destabilized, and that when you become destabilized, you recover.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what it was that led to that. Maybe it was being able to talk to my friend before the trip, or maybe it was the trip itself, or maybe it was time. I'm not sure.
But it feels like there was an inflection point sometime around the time of the trip. This whether it's the trip or something else, we don't know. But there was some sort of you feel an internal qualitative shift in how you're relating to your life.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And that sounds really meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, even if it was just the video you were showing also helped too, where like we talked about, you were saying that our kids will see us for who we are, for themselves. It doesn't matter what anyone else says, what your ex says about you to them, or, that kind of carries over to that too, to where your ex may do destabilizing things or like hurting me, bringing on an affair partner too soon around the kids. But those things don't destabilize me because I know that I'll always be the constant, you know? Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it could be just that thing itself wasn't really a big deal. So maybe something else will be a bigger deal and not too destabilizing. Who knows?
Well, something's going to happen for sure, right? It's not that
Yeah.
we achieve this, maybe it will happen. I hope that it will, but it seems unlikely that we'll reach some point of total enlightenment and just never experience upset again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's more about, the frequency, the intensity, and the duration of the upset, basically.
Yeah.
As we become more grounded and as we become more skilled, we can decrease all of those.
Yeah. I definitely think it's helpful, with a lot of when I talk to you, we talk about things in terms of reframing how we do things, or the framework, what is it called? Where you reframe it as like the rule in which I go by when I think about such and such thing and this and that. Those kind of reframing things have been really helpful.
I mean, first, I'm glad to hear it. And secondly, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Yeah, I think just in general, when we talk and I bring up, certain questions or certain doubts, and then you respond with, oh, well, maybe you think about it this way or that way. Like, for instance, I can think of two examples, like both of which we've talked about before. One was like giving yourself permission to do the things, to take care of yourself,
Yeah.
And then the reframing thing, what you explained was, what would you want for your children or someone you love to give themselves permission to do, right?
Yeah.
The other thing was like a couple of weeks ago, I was struggling with this thought of even though I did the best that I could in our relationship, and I did all these things, I did all these chores, I took care of the kids. Otherwise, I felt like a pretty good father. Tried to meet her needs and stuff, and she felt like all that stuff is still not worth, was worth leaving me for. And talked about it in a way of like, oh, let's reframe it. It's not like she left you, but it's like you built this house together. And I forgot what the exact specific thing was, but it wasn't like she left me. It was like she left the relationship. She left like the house that we built together.
Yeah, and I think the specific example or the analogy that I used there was that, like, it's not only about you. Your relationship is a house that also requires some maintenance when issues come up. And you were saying that she was basically never willing to maintain the relationship.
Right. Yeah.
It needed to be a relationship that has no trouble at all for it to work. But relationships just naturally develop friction points and tears, like everything. Like any house, doesn't matter how well built it is.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, there's going to be a leak somewhere or something, and you need to be able to at least acknowledge it and ideally be willing to address it. And you said that she wasn't really willing to do either.
Right. So it wasn't like she wasn't willing to invest in me, and there was something inherently wrong with me per se, but it was like the relationship. She wasn't willing to put any work into maintaining the relationship, which was very much true. So yeah, those kind of things were really helpful. There's definitely more examples than just those two. I'm just trying to think of them, Yeah.
Yeah, I think, there may not be a more obvious thing for me to say, but I think it's good to talk about these things, right? And just hear other ways of thinking about them. Because if it's just us in our heads, like we're just rehashing the same material. And if we're in a self-blaming mood, then that's all we're going to generate.
Yeah.
And I imagine, you were saying...
I definitely love being in a self-blaming mood. Yeah.
And you were saying about, talking with a friend for 3 hours and having a friend be validating and affirming. It's huge. It feels so good and so important. Of course, ideally we want to be able to do some self-validation and be able to maybe get ourselves out of self-blame mode, but it's not always easy to do by ourselves, especially when the situation is kind of extreme.
Yeah.
Like it has been for you.
Yeah.
So maybe on that note also, how are you taking care of yourself these days?
Well, there was the trip, so that was nice.
Yeah.
It was just nice to get away and then just kind of be able to, and like even when I was away, to just kind of be able to look at things from a different perspective, I don't know what different perspective that is exactly, but just, I guess to just think about things.
Yeah. And like you said, also to not be in it also means to not have that be maybe such a central part of your identity.
Yeah.
A little bit like you said about your kids too, right? Like it seems healthy to not have that be the main, the first thing you say about yourself, right? When
Yeah.
you describe yourself to a hypothetical new person, like, hi, I just recently got divorced, or I'm in the process of getting divorced, or like maybe that doesn't have to be the first thing,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the second, or the third. And
Right.
yeah, I think being in a totally different context lets you do that. Like, oh, I'm a guy who takes
Yeah.
interesting
Right.
trips and I have things to talk about. There are people here, and turns out I like fermented shark.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah. That was pretty gross, that fermented shark. But yeah, it's like you're saying, having that not be like, the center of my identity. It's almost like when you're writing and you're just trying to get the assignment done and you kind of write terribly because you just are trying to write and get it done versus like when you're proofreading someone else's writing and you have something invested in it. It's like, I don't know, when you're not like in the thick of it and you're not trying to just get something done or get through it, you have a totally different perspective on it.
Yeah, there's less time pressure, and I guess less pressure in general to figure it out, right? So there's time to just kind of look at it and maybe feel it, but not necessarily do something about it right now.
Yeah.
There's more space.
Yeah. Like my sister and I always do this. Like she sends me something to proofread and it's all murked up because I'm like using passive voice here and that doesn't really make sense with this section or it doesn't flow or whatever. And then I always send her something and then she's also like, you're using passive voice. And I'm like, oh, okay. It also doesn't flow well. And I'm like, okay. I think it's just like when you're in the middle of your thing, you don't do it well.
Yeah. And I think in this example, maybe you're writing something and then you go take a trip to the other side of the world and you read it there and you find all these things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's basically what I felt like. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got, which really does sound like, some shift in your identity, right? It's the same as sending it to your sister. It's like you're letting somebody else look at your situation and that somebody else is you in a totally different context of life.
Yeah. But to answer your question, I just got back from the trip and like this week I immediately picked up the kids and then here today, I got back at 3 a.m. because the flight was delayed by a little bit. So I got back at 3 a.m. and the next day I picked up the kids at like 8 o'clock from my ex-wife's place because she needed to go to work or something that day. So I picked them early that Sunday instead. And so where we had talked about it, we discussed about it, so I had to pick them up at 8 that day and I was super jet lagged the whole day.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if I'm copping out to this answer, how I'm taking care of myself. But this week of being with them has been good. Being with them has been very fulfilling, I guess.
Yeah.
Enjoyable, refreshing.
Nourishing.
Yeah. It's not perfect, right? But, like there's definitely some yelling that happens sometimes. But we went to school and he forgot some things. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like things that are frustrating here and there. It's not perfect like a fairy tale or anything. But even then, it's like in the apologizing for yelling or it's things like that. Those are fulfilling. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, I hear you. They're wholesome. It's like, this is what life should be like. Right?
Yeah.
This is what life is about.
I just really enjoyed being their dad. I enjoy being single. I got to say, people keep telling me, oh, it's just for now. You're going to want to date again. I don't know, man.
Yeah. I get to sleep star-shaped on the bed.
Yeah.
I can eat out of the pot.
I just don't have to deal with another person's schedule. I don't have, I only have to answer to myself. And, I don't have to answer about someone else's feelings, just me and my kids,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's like, if I'm just thinking that being in a relationship is going to be just like being with my ex-wife again, because that's the only relationship I've really ever been in.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And as usual, very astute of you to note, right? If you only have one model, you might assume that it's only ever like that.
Right.
Although I guess, other people in relationships too, right? So presumably you've heard from them about
I know like academically, not all women are like my ex-wife, but it's just more of like a concern with myself, You know, like I'm always going to be worrying about like what this person's thinking or if this person's happy or comfortable or whatnot, or maybe it's concerned with my own unhealthiness and being in a relationship.
In terms of your own over focusing on your partner's need.
Yeah. Or like oversensitivity, I guess, for what it's like, you know, just, for being, I think just like being in the course of our marriage, a relationship with her, I was very sensitive to her tone of voice. Yeah. Or I don't know. Maybe I could have been more sensitive to tone of voice, and there's a lot of things I didn't know about. I let that affect me a lot. I don't know. This whole thing about being in a relationship in the future is probably going to be a whole nother session.
You think just one?
Or maybe more than that. Yeah. I just think there's going to be old demons that I have no interest in having in the new relationship.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, this is 100% of your experience. Like as far as your kind of internal Bayesian counter goes, it's like, this is 100% going to happen exactly the same way again.
Yeah, exactly. It's not even just that. I think it's like the energy expenditure. I'm not ready for the energy expenditure of caring for another person right now.
Yeah, you're very much still healing. I mean, and you're in a good place, it sounds like, but it doesn't change the fact that this is all fresh and you're healing, right? And you'll know when you're ready. There's not any particular time or when you're interested, even separate from ready, right? But like you said, right now you're enjoying just not having to worry about anyone other than your kids, which feels like worrying about them or caring for them feels wholesome and nourishing and satisfying, and you don't need somebody else to worry about right now.
Yeah, I think that's the extent of the self-care I've been doing. I think I could probably do with a little more exercise than maybe eating better now that I'm back. You know, just getting back into the routine of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, you know, the question about self-care kind of naturally applies more to the time that you're not with your kids, because when you're with them, you feel good.
Yeah.
Right. But how do you feel good also when you're not with them? I know that for me, it was a big change when I started enjoying my time without my son, because it's sort of like how you were saying that a big portion of your identity was about being divorced or going through a divorce, and that being kind of front and center. Like, I think for me, for a long time, a big part of my identity was not having access to my son as much as I wanted. And so when I wasn't with him, I was sad. And at some point, I learned to enjoy my time without him. I still prefer time with him, but learning to enjoy my time without him, so that, and a big part of it was that not always thinking about the fact that I'm not with him when I'm not with him.
Right.
Not having that as my foremost identity.
When you weren't with him and you were feeling bad or just not good, does it stem from just like missing your son, or does it stem from also feelings of guilt too, not being present yourself?
It was really a combination of things. I think sadness about not spending time with him. It was about feeling angry and upset about the unfairness of not getting to spend time with him. Like every moment that I spent away from him seemed to me like an offense against me, and me feeling powerless around it. So I was feeling sad about that. I was feeling angry and frustrated about that. I was feeling really afraid because I didn't know if that's ever going to change, or do I just need to get used to seeing him what seemed to me like very little time. So it was a lot of really problematic emotions. And I think the untangling happened also working on all of those simultaneously, basically.
Yeah, right.
Reassuring myself that actually I don't need to be afraid because our relationship is very strong, and that it's not just about the time we spend together, but the quality, and looking at other sort of indicators of the strength of our relationship. And then recognizing that, you know, whatever was happening maybe wasn't fair, but it didn't mean that I did something wrong or that I didn't try enough or anything like that. And so just kind of shrinking it back to the right proportion. So that takes away the guilt, like you were saying before, right? Did I feel guilty at the beginning? Yes. And then later, no, because I realized I'm doing everything I can possibly do. And the fact that it's not leading to the results that I want quickly doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It means, the system is designed poorly, the capital S system, but it doesn't mean that I'm doing something wrong. And then much later, after all of that, was just really coming to enjoy my time alone, or without him rather, and recognizing that there are all kinds of activities that I do that I just wouldn't be able to do if he was with me, for example, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'd need to find some other logistical solution. I guess people get babysitters. It's like unimaginable to me to get a babysitter because because I enjoy the time with him so much and I don't have a lot of it. But if I had him all the time, I'm sure that that's something I would be considering. But yeah, coming to enjoy the time away from him by not spending time away from him, just thinking about how it's not okay to have time away from him.
Yeah. Cool. I totally resonate with all those. Yeah. I guess I got to work on the thing about like being okay with my time without them.
Yeah. So one thing that was very helpful for me is finding things that were really fun to do, like that I really enjoy doing and that I could not do with him.
Yeah.
And then just scheduling them for the times that we're not together. So there was something there. And, very similar to what you were saying before about the fake it till you make it, right? The peeping through my fingers at the parts of the show that I could tolerate.
Yeah.
So maybe at the beginning, if I had 2-3 days without him, I'd be really upset. But there was this like one class that I really liked that I knew I was going for 2 hours. And that was Point of Light.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it would break the upset. And then over time, again, having more of those things, but also just being less upset away from him and learning to enjoy my life separately. But I think scheduling good stuff is super important because then it's not me deciding then and there, right? Yeah. Like I'm never going to decide to just intensely exercise in order to feel better. It's just never going to happen. But if I have a jiu-jitsu class that I go to regularly at the same hour, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And I'll feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's kind of up and down for me. Like there's something coming up next week with my ex-wife that I know I'm missing out on. And it's kind of a big deal. And I know I'm not going to be able to be there just because of the custody arrangement and things like that. And so that kind of sucks,
What is the thing?
So my older one, he got really into aviation and avionics. And so he's really into planes and stuff. And so like there's once a year this thing where the Navy comes and they do this air show with Blue Angels. And all these things. And he's looking forward to going. And it's on the week where they're with her. So she's going to take them. And I knew this for a while. So actually there was this big fiasco where she was kind of like beating around the bush and outright lying to me, like saying that she might not be able to take him because she would be too busy, quote unquote. But actually it was because she wanted to take the boys with that guy and his kid,
Yeah.
So in the end, it was like, well, if you're not going to take him, then we should tell him, and because he would want to go.
Yeah.
At the end, I was like, ultimately, I can kind of tell him and let him down gently because it's something that I had told him about in the first place. And then she was like, okay, actually, she came clean and she said, no, actually, we're going to take him with that guy and his kid. And I was like, okay, well, so it wasn't that you were too busy. It was just that you just didn't want to tell me that,
Yeah.
So some weeks are harder than others, without the boys,
Yeah.
But even then, that incident that happened a couple weeks ago, and I was really upset at the time, but I was just kind of able to, nowadays I'm kind of able to think past that and be like, that's just one thing in the grand scheme of things. It's not like they're going to love me any less because I can't be with them. Things like that.
It's so great that you're able to give yourself that in real time, right? And as time passes, you'll collect more and more examples of these things being true and realize that there's not a threat to the relationship there. But at the beginning, it's scary, right? Because you don't know. You haven't been through it. Like you don't actually know if, going to the aviation show without you is going to matter or not. You sort of know, but like you say, academically, right?
Academically, but
intellectually.
I want to go see the Blue Angels too.
Yeah, but as these things happen, hopefully you start collecting evidence that it doesn't change the relationship. And maybe he comes and he's like super excited about it and he tells you about it. Maybe you watch, YouTube movies about it. Maybe you find some other air show to go to together.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Or maybe not. But like you said, I mean, it's very unlikely that it'll actually hurt the relationship in any way.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, I'm still sad, but it's still disappointing that I wasn't, because originally, like, I was asked if I could kind of tag along if she was going to take the boys. I was kind of like, hey, can I take you along? And she's like, no, I'm going to bring that guy. And so I don't want to be there at all, you know? And so it's just like being sad about missing out on that experience, you know?
Yeah.
You know, being able to see his face light up when he sees the airplanes and
Yeah, of course.
when he sees the jets and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, again, in this context, I think this is part of why it's so important to schedule really fun things for ourselves
Yeah.
and not have it be only about the kids,
Yeah.
so that we can be fully charged with the kids too. The image that scares me the most, and I think I was that for some time, long time, much longer than you. I think probably a year, maybe two. It's kind of a Jack in the Box dad, you know, where like I was just kind of hiding in my box and unhappy until my son showed up, and then I sprang out and I was genuinely very happy and energized. And then he went away, and I would just like cry and be upset and just like hide in my hole.
Oh.
I don't think that's great, you know, and it's not great for him. I don't think he saw any of it. And part of what snapped me out of it was realizing that this could create some sort of a strain on him if he somehow senses, again, because kids are telepathic, right? And if he somehow senses that I'm sad that he's leaving, and that can create some guilt for him or some tension. So like, I'm just lining stuff up literally for after he leaves.
Right.
So that there's something for me to look forward to, so that I don't apply any kind of emotional pressure on him.
Right.
And with time, I came to be genuinely into those things. And I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to him leaving. I don't think that would ever be true, but I'm also like really happy for the next thing coming up. And it took some work to find those things and to get myself to the point where it's true. But I think it's so good for me and so good for him and so good for our relationship.
Right. I think there's also just like an element of just having to accept that this is the reality, right? Like the reality is that I'm going to miss out on a few things. First experiences that she's going to be the one to experience it with them, and vice versa, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just going to be imperfect.
Yeah. And that's just the consequence of this life choice that we made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe there's no answer right now, but I guess what I'm asking when I ask about how are you caring for yourself, I'm asking specifically about the times when they're not with you and how can you make it so that you have things to look forward to during the times that they're not with you.
So next week, I'm actually going to visit my parents again.
Oh, fun.
So I'll see my dad again. I mean, I just stopped him off this past Tuesday, and I was like, oh, I'll see you this next week.
Are you going to do a slideshow about the trip to the rest of the family?
Yeah, probably. But it's also my sister's birthday, and there was also just like these cheap plane tickets. Like Southwest was having a sale for like $29 flights.
Oh,
yeah.
I love when they do that.
So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to put those flights. Yeah.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
The timing just happened to work out that way. So next week I'll see my family. I'm sure there'll be plenty of distractions, just chatting with my mom and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I did all the talking with my dad like last week when we were in Denmark.
That's right. All of the talking.
Right.
Nothing more for the coming month or two.
So, yeah. So next week I got something lined up with, for the week without the kids. And then I did set expectations with them. Like, so, hey, I'm going to go on this trip. So don't be too disappointed if I'm going without you. They're like, oh, okay, it's okay, fine. Just bring us back something. Yeah. So there's that. And we'll figure it out as we go along.
Before the Denmark trip,
I tried to pick up playing video games again. And, when the kids weren't here, but I don't really enjoy video games that much anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Growing up is a bummer.
Yeah. So I don't know. Reading, maybe. I've been finishing up this sci-fi series. So
which one?
This is the have you seen the Amazon show The Expanse? It's on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
So this is this series of 9 books.
Yeah. So you're reading The Expanse series?
Yeah. The Expanse series.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is the last one. So the show only covers the first 6 books, and then it got canceled or whatever. So I just read book 7, 8, and 9.
Well, that does sound like fun.
Yeah, but a class would be cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of something like a class. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think class, because class also gives you some community, right? And that's so nice.
Yeah.
Have people that kind of smile when they see you, and that you smile when you see them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder, well, maybe, I don't know if you have thoughts now or if it's something you could think of it later, but what kind of class might be interesting for you?
Yeah. I'll have to think about that. Not really sure yet. Wouldn't a class meet weekly? And then the weeks that I have the kids, I'd still have to go to the class? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I guess that'll take some creativity. But even if the example I'm familiar with is martial arts, right? I mean, generally speaking, they have classes many times a week and they're drop-in, right? And it doesn't really matter. I mean, you're not going to become a state champion by not training every week, 4 times a week, but maybe that's not your goal right now.
Right.
So you could be coming just on the weeks they're not there, or however you want to set it up. Like, as long as it's a drop-in class, then it can be okay. Or if you want to do an improv practice group that meets weekly, maybe you go on the off week.
Yeah. Right.
Or a hiking group or a mountain biking group.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
sewing class or a painting studio or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Something to think about and look into. Yeah. Huh. I definitely have a lot of hobbies and stuff. And so
much free time now that you're not playing video games.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I know. Kind of a bummer that I'm not into them anymore.
Yeah.
It's okay. More productive things to do with my time. I think that's what it is. I think when I'm playing the game, I'm just like, I just feel so unproductive.
Yeah, you can feel, time is not being used well right now.
You're right.
What am I learning exactly? AB? I knew that.
Yeah. All right. I got to get going to pick up the kids soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Good to talk with you as usual. And I think you're doing really great work just with yourself through this process. I mean, you're sounding really well.
Trying to. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Yeah. I would be here without you,
Oh, really, my pleasure. Thanks for letting me in.
Yeah.
Okay. Have fun on the weekend.
All right. Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.